Okay, so today we're going to go over point of view because it was something that I saw on Success Maker was kind of, we were having a little bit of trouble with it. So I'm going to go over this. This is something that we've gone over before. So, really quick, point of view is the viewpoint from which the story is told. So, you have to figure out who's telling the story, the author, the narrator, a character, and that kind of influences the whole story. So, whether or not the story is really personal and really emotional, or if the story is just objective and there aren't emotions coming into play there, that is determined by point of view. So for first person, a character is telling the story. So that's the person, they use words like I, me, my, we, our. It's almost like if your friend was telling you a story about their life. The second person point of view is when the narrator is talking to the reader. So you and your. They don't usually use second person in fiction books because I think it makes the fictional story seem a little bit less personal. But they do use it with nonfiction books because they use like, oh, did you know? Things like that. And second person, I kind of think of it as like when someone's trying to tell me advice. You should do this, you should do that. That's what I think of. Third person is when the author or narrator is telling the story. And this is probably the most common in fiction stories. So they use words like he, she, him, her, they, them. Don't get tricked though, because sometimes a first person narrator will be telling a story about somebody else, but they're just telling it from their viewpoint, and they use words like, oh, I was here at the store yesterday and I saw this guy, he was eating food, something like that. So you have to be careful. This one always wins out. I, me, my, we, our always wins out. And remember, you're looking for these clue words and things that in non-dialogue. So when the person isn't talking, are they using I, me, my, we, our, or he, she, him, her, they, them? Okay? Another thing we have to look at is that with third person, there's three different types of third person. There's objective, there's limited, and there's omniscient. Now, I know that you guys are this was a little bit tough for us when we did this, but it's really important because it tells us how the story will go. So when something is objective, the narrator tells what happened from the outsider's perspective. They don't know any of the character's thoughts or feelings, and they only report the action and the dialogue. So it's kind of like they do this in fiction stories when they're telling a story about another person. Um, Generally, they don't know any of the inside thoughts, any of the emotions that the character is going through unless they can see it on their face or they can hear it in their words. And usually they don't say, oh, they are angry. The author would say something like they seemed angry because you don't know for sure. That's what it means to be objective. The second one for third person is third person limited. So the narrator tells the story from the viewpoint of one of the characters, and the narrator knows everything about that character's thoughts and feelings. So we read the book The Giver, and I can show you it right now, actually. Now, thinking about the feeling of fear as he pedaled home along the river path, he remembered the moment of palpable, stomach-sinking terror when the aircraft had streaked above. It was not what he was feeling now with December approaching, so he searched for the right word to describe his own feeling. That is third person limited because the narrator is telling the story from the viewpoint of just one of the characters, just from Jonas. We're not hearing from any of the other characters in The Giver. And, there are other characters. There's The Giver, there's Asher. We don't know how they're feeling. We only know how Jonas is feeling and what Jonas is thinking. The third one is third person omniscient. So when in third person omniscient, the character knows all of the character's thoughts and feelings. It's almost like we get an inside look in a bunch of people's brains, and it's like a mind reader telling the story. And I find this one to be really interesting when I'm reading in general. But most of the time, what you'll find is that things are objective or limited. Omniscient is kind of tough to write because it tells us almost like we have the full story from everybody. And that can be tough. With limited, it's almost like we get like part of the story. And with objective, all we get is what we can see and hear. We don't get any feelings. I hope that helps. If you guys need more help, I can do a couple more examples later, but I wanted to keep this video kind of short. So hope that helps. Let me know. Love you guys. Bye.